call this meeting of the County Commissioners to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if we could remain standing for a moment, have a moment of silence, I ask that you keep the family of Darlene Neal in your prayers. The Neal family has been a tremendous volunteer group for the fire service here in Kent County, and also for the 3 soldiers that were unfortunately killed overseas in the last week. Thank you very much. Time is always allotted at the end of each meeting of the commissioners' meetings to receive comments from the public. First, I have a public notice I'd like to read. It's let me get this right. It's a CHR Bill number 1-2024 entitled Property Tax Credit Commerce Zones. And let me read this one. Notice was duly advertised on January the 25th, 2024. The hearing will be held on February the 6th, 2024 at 6 p.m. Okay, it says Code Home Rule Bill number 1-2024, introduced by Ronald H. Fithian, President of the Board of County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland. An act to amend Chapter 152, Taxation, Article Roman numeral 8, Property Tax Credit, Commerce Zones of the Code of Public Local Laws of Kent County, Maryland, for the purpose of defining tax credits under this article as non-transferable by adding E, a tax credit granted under this article on real property owned by a business entity is non-transferable and shall end up on the date the property is transferred to any subsequent property owner. In the taxable year in which the transfer occurs, a business entity shall be given a credit prorated based on the number of months the business entity owned the property. To Article Roman numeral 8, Property Tax Credit, Commerce Zones, 152-35, Computation and Expiration Tax Credit. A hearing will be held on February the 6th, 2024 at 6 p.m. in the Commissioner's Hearing Room, R. Clayton Mitchell Jr., Kent County Government Center, 400 High Street, Chestertown, Maryland. The agenda for the meeting will be published online 24 hours in advance of the meeting at www.kentcounty.com/commissioners/meeting agenda. Citizens are encouraged to participate in the public hearing process. If you require communication assistance, please contact the County Commissioner's Office at 410-778-4600 and press 4, or visit Maryland Relay at www.marylandrelay.org no later than noon on Friday, February the 2nd, 2024. Complete copy of the proposed legislative bill is available in the Commissioner's Office, 400 High Street, Chestertown, Maryland, Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. and on the county's website at www.kentcounty.com/commissioners/draft legislation by order of the County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland, Sandra M. Blackston, Clerk, and it was published in the Kent News on January the 25th, 2024. Then we have 4 consent items. Number 1 is a regular session minutes dated January the 23rd, 2024. liquor minutes dated January the 23rd, 2024, public hearing minutes dated January the 23rd, 2024, and a closed session minutes dated January the 23rd, 2024. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Got a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. First appointment this morning is Mr. Peter Sweetser, Planning Committee member, Sumner Hall Board, to talk about the National Vietnam War Veterans Day. Have a seat, Mr. Peter.
Thank you, sir.
And if you have someone else with you.
No.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much for seeing me. One correction, I'm not on the Sumner Hall Board. They are one of the participants in the event.
Okay.
If anything, I represent the town of Chestertown, all of which are members of a national organization that supports and created the National Vietnam Veterans Day event on March 29th each year. Commissioners, thank you very much for seeing me. I have 3 of these posters that we produced last year, if I may. These are produced in general by the national organization, which is under the Department of Defense. About 10 years ago, the Department of Defense decided that there was a problem, a wrong that existed 50 years ago, which was the result of the fact that when Vietnam veterans, whether they were in Vietnam or not, were treated extremely badly when they returned to the United States. I think everybody who is either our age or lived or read the history knows that. They decided that something needed to be done on that as we entered the final years of the 50th anniversary of the war. They created the Vietnam War Commemoration, which is a national organization. They believe that about 7 million Americans served in uniform during the period from 1955 to 1975, which was the period from the time the first advisor entered Vietnam to the Battle of the USS Mayaguez, which they believed was the last event of the Vietnam War. They wanted to do something about recognizing and welcoming those people home. Since that time, of that 7 million, and about 6 million are believed still to be alive, almost 4 million of those people have been thanked in person by somebody who has been appointed for that purpose. They've shook their hand and presented to them a pin, just like this one that I wear, that I was presented with, and thanked them for their service. 2 years ago, we had our first event here in Chestertown. We expected 25 people to show up because the town manager at the time said to me, I knew him, but I had not involved in anything in the town. I've been, by the way, a resident of Kent County for 10 years, having moved here from Connecticut. He said that you won't get many people. I believe that he was based on doing that on the basis of the history of veterans events here. I will tell you 340 people showed up on a night that on March 29th, it was 40 degrees outside, not a single person left. We thought we'd give out about 12, half of them being veterans that we would give pins to. In fact, the box of pins that I received from the Department of Defense had 100 pins in it. I had already made out the return label. 93 veterans stepped forward. Last year, we had our second event. The commissioners were invited. I'm happy to say that 2 of you were able to come. The chairman was not, I understand. And we had over 200 people showed up at that, and another 40 veterans, 60 spouses of veterans, and 2 Gold Star veterans. That is, members of families who actually lost a family member during the war period. We're going to hold it again this year. I made an application again for a permit from the town for the space right out at Memorial Park where the Vietnam veteran stone is, where we've held it for the last 2 years. I'm here because after the last event, Commissioner Price and I had a conversation, and he asked me if I wouldn't come to the commission this year and explain what we were doing officially and see if there wasn't something that the Kent County Commission could do to support this Kent County initiative. There are, in fact, several organizations in Kent County that have supported this from the first year and are members of what the federal government calls the Vietnam War Commemoration. They're partners in that. One is the town of Chestertown itself. The other is the Sumner Hall GAR post. The other is the American Legion post here in town. The other is the Old Kent County Organization of the Daughters of the American Revolution. And I'm pleased to say also a fraternity of the Washington College called Kappa Sigma, which actually does veteran affairs as part of its national mission. We had great success the first and second year. What we realized as a group of organizers is that we're not reaching out far enough out into Kent County. Frankly, the reason for this is in part that all of the money that's been spent to do what we have done so far has been private funds. We are therefore, I'm here therefore to ask the commission, with a full understanding of how tight money is in both the county and in the town, that if the commission would allocate $1,000, as I'm going to be asking the town to do, we will have advertising in the Kent County News and other publications, both printed and digital, around the county to try to reach out to the Vietnam veterans who are outside of town or outside of the American Legion reach, which is what we've been using so far. What we should understand as a base is that veterans, possibly in general, are reluctant to step forward when called. Vietnam veterans are particularly reluctant because for 50 years, many of these people have been upset, properly so, about the way they were treated. Imagine what it's like to be angry about something, anything, for 50 years. We've seen the reaction at the last two events of some of these veterans coming forward. So as a result, what we need to do is work harder to reach out so that we can get the opportunity to thank these veterans in our county for the service that they did. The involvement of veterans is not just those who may have served in country, but it's anybody who served in uniform during their period of time, because nobody who joined or was called to service in the military gets a choice of where they're sent. They all could have gone. They all put themselves at risk by being involved in the military during that period of time. In fact, like all do, as was recognized today. That was a National Guard unit in Jordan where those 3 people were killed, 2 of them women. So one thinks that if you join the military, maybe it helps do something for you. It doesn't matter what your purpose in joining. You put yourself at risk. Those people know that they did it. 3 of them this week paid the ultimate sacrifice. So it's people like that that we want to honor. So that's why I'm here, sir.
Well, it's very nicely put. You did a great job, and I'm going to entertain a motion to for that $1,000, and I bet you I'm not going to have trouble getting it through. Sheriff, you want to?
Well, Peter, when we had our meeting, our little coffee meeting, I also suggested that we, as the county, actually present you with a proclamation at your event. And if you will work with the county staff between now and then, we'll make sure that that gets presented.
Thank you very much, sir.
So I'd like to make a motion to contribute $1,000 on behalf of the Vietnam War Veterans Day celebration, which is scheduled for March 29th.
I got a motion. Do I have a second?
Yes, sir, a second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
And I'm assuming that that should come out of fund balance,
Contingency.
contingency. And that should come out of contingency.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
And done a nice job.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for seeing me.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to recognize these soldiers and these families who have done so much for the United States.
We should never forget.
Never forget.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Next up, we have Ms. Shelley Neal Edwards, Director of Department of Social Services, and she's here to talk about summer electronic benefit transfer. How are you today?
Morning, hi, fine. How are
Good
you?
morning.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Can I first say thank you this morning for the moment of silence, especially as it relates to Darlene Neal. She is my beloved aunt, and she is greatly missed. So thank you. I just want to say I appreciate every moment of silence. Thank you. Good morning, President Fithian, Commissioner Nickerson, and Commissioner Price. Thank you for allowing us time to briefly explain the summer EBT program, which is an electronic benefits transfer, SNAP, or formerly known as food stamp program. In early 2023, Congress authorized the summer EBT program to provide grocery buying benefits to families with school-aged children who qualify for free or reduced lunches when schools are closed in the summer. For the past 4 years, in partnership with you, with the county, we have participated in the summer EBT program, which was Summer SNAP. And the summer EBT program has proven to be a game changer in the fight against childhood hunger. Last year, with the county and the state 50-50 match of $9,350, we were able to serve 187 children in Kent County. We targeted the areas that the county with no access to summer meals, such as Rock Hall, Betterton, Galena, and Millington. With this new federal program, the estimated cost would be about $10,300 from the county to serve approximately 1,300 children throughout the whole county. So it's not just in those areas, it's all the children that are eligible. So in summary, by providing an additional $1,000 more than the past 2 years, you would be able to serve more than 1,000 children, and they will receive an additional $20 per child per month from previous years. So it was $100, it'll be $120. We plan to partner with Maryland State Department of Education in order to ensure that we reach all the children that will qualify for this program. And we hope that you would consider this request, as this will assist in providing additional food resources when children are not in school. So again, thank you for your time, and I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions?
No, I don't think so.
It seems to be a very worthy program, and I guess
To
during the
clarify-
budget process, we'll,
Yeah, to clarify, you don't need any FY '24 dollars, this will all be FY '25.
Yes, yes.
But the application needs to be made before.
Soon, yes,
it'll
yes.
go through the budget process, which is why
Correct.
Ms. Neal Edwards is here before you today.
Very good.
So yes, so it would serve, like I said, the whole entire county, children, that's the free and reduced eligible. So that would include all of Garnett, all of Rock Hall, and all of Galena, and all of those schools are called SEP, Community Eligible Provision Schools. And then middle school and high school that are SNAP eligible.
so how exactly do you provide this food for these children?
So it goes on a card,
Right.
and then they can use it at the grocery store for approved items. So it's not, and it's good, nutritious produce, foods, and no paper products, but strictly food for the summer months when a lot of the children depend on schools for their meals, breakfast and lunch. This would help when they're out of school.
Any other questions?
Good job.
Thank you. We thank you so
I'll
much.
entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that during the FY '25 budget process, that the county will be committed to $10,228 to support the SNAP program.
I got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your support.
Thanks,
Thank you.
ladies.
Chip McLeod, attorney of McLeod Law Group LLC to speak about Greg Neck Boatyard. Pull up another chair there.
If
if
that's
you need
okay, I
an
can be
extra one.
joined by, guys, yeah, why don't you, no, guys, yeah, you got a chair there? Okay. Scott, why don't you come here in the middle, okay? Yeah. And if I may, I have a couple handouts.
Sure.
Is that all right?
Uh-huh.
Sorry I didn't have these in advance, but I think they'll help. Thanks. How you doing today?
Morning.
Good morning. Sheriff, Commissioner, I'm not sure which anymore.
Seems
Oh,
to be
here you go,
an
Shelley.
ongoing,
There's
okay,
should be
great,
three
thanks.
types. Okay. Well, Commissioners, thank you for having us this morning. My name is Chip McLeod. I'm an attorney here in Chestertown, and I'm here on behalf and with my client, Mr. Scott Westcott of Greg Neck Boatyard, and with his son Bergen Westcott. And I've given you a few handouts, and I think that'll help guide this discussion. But we're really here, you may recall, Mr. Westcott came before you all back in June, and basically came to you and said, hey, Commissioners, I'm looking for some help. I can't get my business reopened because there's some permission I need or some permits I supposedly need. What do I do? And let me just say this, Commissioners, I know for the sake of background and my background, for the relevancy, let me say, you guys are looking at this, let me tell you what you have. You have a summary we're going to go through, and maybe we'll start with that. Let's do this way. Just briefly, though, my background and familiarity with local government. I normally probably wouldn't get involved in a matter like this because this is really a business owner, a property owner that needs permission to do stuff on his property. And this is like sort of basic stuff. And I think most of you know, most of my professional career, I've been involved with local government some way or another. I mean, I actually started as a county administrator here in Kent County, and I went on to become an attorney and really practice local government law for the last 25 years. And during that practice, one thing I've spent a lot of time on is issuing permits, like so functional to local government is permits and licenses and granting people allowances to do things on their personal private property. Permits from adult-oriented businesses, from liquor stores, from big waste landfills to little stuff. All kinds of permits. I've kind of seen it all. And I should say, I am the county attorney for Dorchester County. So tomorrow, I'll be in Dorchester County, sitting with the county council as a county attorney, sort of looking at things from that point of view. So I'm very familiar with that. But here I'm really sitting as an attorney representing a private property owner seeking some assistance from local government. When he came to us and he told me what happened, and then one of the attorneys in my office went back and watched the video of the meeting, this June 6th meeting you all had. And he said, wow, you ought to watch this meeting. It's really kind of incredible how this meeting went for Mr. Westcott. And when he came to us, he goes, man, I went to see the commissioners and this is what it said. And when he described it, I said, really, all that happened? And I kind of said, wow, I want to see this meeting, what happened? So long story short, and you all know me, I went back and watched the meeting that happened in June. And I rewatched it, and I was like, wow, I really can't believe this meeting and sort of how this went for this guy. And I really got more involved, and I said, you know, so let's back up. If I gave you all a summary of events, this one page, you know, this all started for Mr. Westcott in January 26, 23. You know what? Almost a year to the day we sit. And there was this interesting accident that occurred at that marina, and most of you know about it. A 911 call to somebody who fell on a boat, a guest on a houseboat, excuse me. 911 gets called, and we have great first responders, and they show up, and in the process of transporting this patient off the boat onto land, some boards give way, some collapse. You hear all different terminology, but in effect, something gave way that caused some instability for all the people that were responding. And there were some injuries resulting from that. Incidentally, when I heard this story and I heard everything that happened, I said, what happened to the patient? Like, I'm picturing this patient, like, this was all about a 911 call that somebody needed. The patient apparently got on land, walked off the stretcher, and, ended up being fine, fortunately. So, apparently, the result of this incident, some firemen, some volunteers were injured, or somebody was injured with the fire company. Apparently, Mr. Wiscott, of course, had insurance. He has a marina. Anybody with a marina, especially in 45 years of business, is going to have insurance. If there's injuries, people file claims, they get paid. That's good. So I start looking at this and thinking, wow, and by the way, the headlines, when this incident occurred, Chesapeake Bay Magazine, volunteer firefighters injured in dock collapse while rescuing patient from boat. That's the headline. And when you read through it, now this is just news, so in fairness, they're just reporting the news, but that's how it was reported. And then the other headline we found, February 7th, pier collapses while patient being transported from boat. Serious injuries averted. Okay? And you read the article, it's interesting. They talk about people falling in the water and things like that. I wasn't there when this incident happened. I'm kind of picturing it. Then I hear this version and Bergen's version of sort of what happened that night. And the first responders, to their credit, they're trying to help a patient. This happens. When you go through the notes of this whole event, because I want you to know, we went and got the whole record from the health department. I really wanted to see what the heck happened. And I live here in Kent County, and I really wanted to understand what the heck happened here. So we go and get the whole file. And after this, so as soon as the collapse or the giveaway occurs, they actually call 2 more fire companies. And I guess thinking, wow, this thing's happened, we got to get more people here, something more may happen. Well, fortunately, nothing more happened. But really, a series of events occurred. And if you go to the summary of events, if you go through, I just want to walk you through this, if you don't mind. I told you about the incident on the 26th. Immediately thereafter, the fire company alerts the fire marshal and says, man, you better go out and take a look at this place. What we saw, you better take a look at. I'm looking at this one-page summary, okay? And they go out, and then after the fire marshal's involvement, the Kent County Planning and Zoning Office is alerted. And then you have the County Planning Office alerts the Kent County Health Department. And all on February 9th, there's a determination made that there's a public nuisance there, and a sign goes up and a notice is handed to Mr. Westcott. Now, if you would, I gave you another packet. It's like this packet here. And commissioners, if I have the time, I know you have other things to do, but I do think this is important because this file, you have to see how simple this file is, and then imagine what situation he's sitting in here a year later, what's happened as far as how the government really hasn't helped him at all. So this first page is in the health department file. This is the complaint. It comes in from Scott Duhamel by email. And this is like sort of in the file. And if you go to the next page, that's the actual complaint. It's an email, okay? Now, and again, commissioners, this is probably good for you to see it because this is Kent County. The fire companies are important. When things happen, public safety is number one. So Scott Duhamel, who's deputy chief of the fire company, sends an email off to the health department and says, hey, this is what happened. And it's interesting, if you look at the third paragraph, it says at this point, Moshe and the building inspector have been contacted. Okay, this is the next day, neither of which have been able to provide any. So everybody's sort of alerted, you better go out and look at this property. And the way I would put it, because I represent local governments, they unleashed the Kraken on this guy. They basically said, everybody better go look at this place because it's a mess. So this is sort of the series of events, but this is the triggering complaint, and it's legitimate. I mean, the fire company people that went and responded, or all the first responders who said, hey, look, if we get a call there tomorrow night, like this again, how do we know we don't go on another pier and it's unsafe? That's a legitimate concern, so everybody goes out and takes a look. If you go see what happens next, on February 9th, the day that the sign goes up and the notice gets given to Mr. Westcott, I mean, if you look what it says, the determination's been made, this is an emergency, you got to vacate. Now, keep in mind, vacate. He was told, every customer of his, every slip holder, go. He had to tell slip holders, paying slip holders, leave. And when he got this notice, here's the big sort of Damocles that hangs over his head. You have 60 days from the date of this letter to do everything we're telling you, or we're going to tell the county attorney, call them for legal action. On the next day, he gets another letter from the health department, but this is after they say they got some information from Mr. Jay Silcox, the engineer hired to determine the condition of the docks. And they give him the same letter, basically, saying if you don't do what you're told, you have in 60 days, this is what's going to happen. Now, I also highlighted, and I know local government, and I've seen these letters before, I've written thousands of them. They come with these sort of, we can fine you this much, and we can fine you for every single day. So again, from February 10th, every day, is this true? Like, add this up, every day he's sitting here trying to do something, this is really going to matter? So here's the important thing, commissioners, here's the notes of how this all transpired. Here's what I wanted to know. Listen to this. When there's a declaration of a public nuisance and all this can happen, you can shut down a business indefinitely, who's making that determination? Who actually said, whoa, public nuisance, sign goes up? And so if you look at these notes from the health department, February 8th, there's a meetings, they go out to the site, and by the way, if you notice, the complaint came in from the fire company that they said, by the way, go check the gray water. Somebody said there's pollution going right into the bay of the water. If you look at the fire company complaint, it actually has an allegation that check the gray water. The notes in the health department said, did not observe a pipe coming from the bathhouse straight into the water. And later on, they did a dye test. Anyway, the important entry is look at February 9th, what actually happened. And I don't know what you all were doing on February 9th. After a meeting with Planning and Zoning and a brief discussion with Tom Yeager, County Attorney, a notice to vacate and to repair or remove was drafted. The notice was hand-delivered to Mr. Westcott. Boom. That's a big day for Mr. Westcott. Then you go on, there's some other notes, some aren't very, but the last entry in the health department file, June 1st, site visit, some improvements, blah, blah, blah. And then there's the sign, like this sign is still up, and I think what's most telling, commissioners, or what I'd be asking if I were you, why does it have by authority or by order of the Board of Kent County Commissioners? Because I have a feeling you all didn't make this determination. And I understand local law enough, and I looked at the county code, the unsafe structure of property. The enforcement officer, the person that gets to do this, make this big determination, is the health officer for Kent County or any person appointed or authorized by the health officer for Kent County to exercise under the enforcement officer's supervision any or all of the responsibilities charged to the enforcement officer by the provisions of this chapter. So the question is, who in all that is the enforcement officer that made all this decision that got him to be told you can't do anything till you get a permit? Now that gets to a whole nother issue in the transcript, and you kind of go through this, and he's been told he needs a permit from the county. We don't understand what kind of permit he needs from Kent County. We understand MDE. He has this email from MDE that says MDE went out to the property on March 20th. And look at the sequence of events. This happened in January, February. Everybody goes out and looks. There's all this. The dust is starting to settle, right? By the way, MDE went out on February 8th. MDE, the Maryland Department of the Environment, their inspector went to the site on the 8th. And if MDE goes and looks at a site, that's what you really pay attention to. What the heck did they find? What are they going to do? MDE's like, okay, we understand what's going on. They're in the process of cleaning up. the people that really are responsible for Piers, the Waterways Division at MDE, they went on March 20th, took a tour, and they have an email saying, we've determined that 85% of your marina is functional. And what that means under COMAR, and this is back to the summary, Commissioners, this is laid out for you. Let me go back to the summary. If you go to the second page of this summary, let me sort of get back to the sequence of events. I'm on page 2 of this summary. At the top, notice to repair, that's February 10th. He gets that second notice that says, Mr. Silcox. And by the way, let me say, it's really interesting to me where Mr. Silcox even gets interjected into all this. Like, he's not a county employee. I don't know if there's some list of preferred local engineers that they're recommending. It's kind of awkward that the county would be, any county employee would be saying, use this engineer to go do something, and then when we like what they say. So I'm not sure his role. I asked my client, Mr. Westcott, like, did you pay him to do anything? And it wasn't clear what he was supposed to be getting as far as plans. This got really odd to me. Mr. Silcox gives some kind of plans, which I glanced at them. They look like very complicated plans to build a really ideal marina, very hardy marina. But here's the most important thing for Mr. Westcott in his legal life, like what he should really worry about, and I told him as a lawyer. He got this email from MDE after a visit on March 20th from Mr. Simmons, who said he observed the existing piers and associated structures associated with the marina are currently 85% functional. According to COMAR, routine maintenance, repair, and replacement of certain structures within the existing structure, where the existing structure is functional and there is no increase in the original length, width, height, or channel ward encroachment, is exempt from the requirement to obtain a state tidal wetlands license. No state authorization is needed for the repairs. In June 6th, when you all were talking about this, all of you, your instincts were so on. You kept asking all the right questions, like, what are we doing here? Why are we, he's got a state permit? An accident happened at the pier. When you really step back and look what happened, it was just an awkward accident, but it certainly didn't mean the whole, it seemed like a lot of reaction, maybe rightfully so, but after March and then April, sort of MDE is settled in, things are okay. Then what? And then you get to him coming in frustration to you all ask all the right questions, why aren't we helping him? You really get some very interesting, I'm going to be very kind and maybe not want to go through this transcript. I almost want to go through and highlight some things. Part of me doesn't want to because some of it's so glaringly wrong. Sort of the advice and the runaround. There are contradictions in here from people you're getting advice from. And so maybe it's best you all look at that. It's really done as a guide, but after I watched that meeting, I couldn't help but say, let's do a transcript. Let's really understand how this went down. This, I think, hopefully, one, I want him to be able to do what he needs to do. I mean, he's the client here. There's sort of a bigger issue here about the energy, sort of what is Kent County projecting about what it wants. The day I went out to see this for myself, like actually where this happened, and I know marinas, I have boats, I've been around. I mean, it's really a wide 10-foot, right?
10
So I kind of understand if one side gives, but it's a lot different when it's this narrow and something gives than something, and it's really a couple feet from the shore. This didn't happen 100 feet out. And everybody's like, whoa, we can't swim back. This was literally, I could have taken one big stride from the land to where this happened. Fair?
Yep.
So when you see it, you're like, how did this result in shut down, send your slip holders away? And what I was getting at, the day I went out there to see it for myself, and I will say this, the place is not as neat as you would like it. And they know that. It's been there for 45 years, and anybody knows about marinas, they may look nice on the front, but there's always a backside. Now, this one has more of a backside. Like every restaurant looks great on the front, but there's always a place where the dumpsters are, right? They got a little more side of where the dumpsters are, let's say. But it's all being cleaned up, little by little. And by the way, the chances of getting anything cleaned up are greater when he's open, generating revenue, than when he's sitting here with nothing. How can he be expected to clean up a thing when he can't do anything? So anyway, when you see it, you kind of think, wow, how did it get so far? But here's what I saw when I went out there. I saw a boat that I would guess cost about a little less than $2 million boat sitting at the end of his T-pier. And I'm like, in all this, look at that boat sitting there in Kent County. And isn't that kind of what we want? $1 million yachts sitting at the end of piers on all of our beautiful waterways? Why is this being made so difficult for people? And here's the other last observation I'm going to leave, because I live here, I'm so invested, I want to, he comes to our office, and I know my other attorneys in my office do other work with other people, and I hear their cases, they tell me we're trying to get this permit, I'm like, why is it taking so long? By the way, whenever I hear about the Critical Areas Commission, I'm like, I don't know why anybody's paying any attention to them. And speaking on behalf of Dorchester County, like, they're out of control. But the other lawyers, we're trying to help other people get permission to do things. I just wonder how many other Mr. Westcotts are out there that have been trying to get something done, and we're told no. Told by some of these people that are in this transcript, no, you can't do it for all these kind of weird reasons they give people. Like, actually, they say in here, there are no code requirements for what we want. We just want it to be safe. When you read this, count how many people say, we just want it to be safe. Just make it safe. And then I will say this about the transcript and the issue of liability. It is sort of fundamental in local government that this is so well settled law in local government that local governments are not responsible for issuing permits or not issuing permits. And by not responsible, I mean liable. People do not sue. First thing they do is not, when something bad happens, I had to go sue the government that permitted that thing to happen. Now, eventually it may lead to that, but this is so basic, like things would shut down if every time somebody needs a permit, they have to sign an indemnification agreement. It's actually recommended in here that the solution is we'll have Mr. Westcott sign an indemnification agreement with the county, so if anything ever bad happens at his marina, we're going to make sure the county's never responsible. Now, that's really not how the world works, or we should be looking at it. This is the local government. This is a business. He has insurance. Like, the last thing the county needs to be worried about is when are we going to get sued? Like, the county has insurance, right? And employees are insured for decisions they make, if they're right or wrong. This story really should have ended on page, I don't know what, the transcript where somebody, I think Commissioner Fithian or somebody said, Mr. Westcott, didn't you have insurance? Yeah. And I think there was a payout, somebody, $35,000 claim.
No, they haven't paid him yet.
Okay, but there's a pending claim, that's okay, that's how it works. That's sort of the end of the story. But all in here, it's like the liability of the county's going to be liable. I represent local governments. That's just the opposite. That's not how you view these things. Okay. If you have any questions, if you all have anything to add, I know I said a lot and I appreciate your time.
No, you're fine.
Anything to add?
I think you got it covered.
Commissioners, I don't know if you have any questions. I mean, I think the ask is, can you please direct whoever, either tell us, show us where he has, what it is he's been asked to do, and if they can't show you right away, let him do it. He should be out there today making repairs and making his marina a better place and having customers so he could generate revenue to continue to clean up the old boats and, right? Isn't that kind of how we want?
Right, yeah.
I don't know what we're waiting for. I really don't.
You haven't started making any repairs, Mr. Westcott?
Ron said we could do a little bit of work in it.
Well, I mean, obviously, we want to try to get him back open, and if something's broke, I mean, you gotta fix it.
Well, just on that point, Mr. Nickerson, we all know what happened. Board's broke, some screw. He's kind of probably afraid to answer, like, yeah, I had to go out and fix the board. It's like, have you been fixing? He wants to say,
okay,
yeah, every day I've been out there like.
No.
But I'm afraid, like, I've been told I need this permit. And then they're
Okay.
like, but you really don't need one, but we want you to get this. He is in this impossible
Okay.
situation.
Fair enough.
The last meeting kind of ended with somebody was going to talk to Mr. Silcox, but that was how's that going to possibly end? Because I'm still wondering I don't understand his role. Mr. Westcott, by the way, and he said this at the meeting, he is a marine builder. He has built piers, he has the equipment to do it, he has built others. He is going to take full responsibility for what he does, and if he does it wrong and one of his customers has an incident, he's on the hook. As his, I mean, that's going to be how this works, just like every other marina.
Are you a licensed marine contractor?
Well, I guess it falls under my whole scheme of things, you know. I don't know if there's any real license to it.
It is.
Is
It
it?
is, yes, sir.
But I imagine I'm probably grandfathered in on that since I've been building docks for like 30 years or more, you know.
I mean, I can't answer. I don't.
But there's not, but that.
And I know it's different with-
Even if he isn't, this situation doesn't require a licensed marine contractor to do anything.
Okay.
I mean, we're in this whole thing is, I see in the transcript this desire that every pier built in Kent County is done by a professional, and it's the best pier ever. Yeah, but that's not always the case. They say in here they've never, ever seen a pier built without a professional marine person coming in. I don't know. But it seems a lot that I just, in other places, like every marine,
That
every
was
pier.
sort of what we were struggling with. And I think it's, I mean, I said in this transcript, you can read that I said the same thing. I didn't know where we were going to start and where we were going to stop. I tell you, the idea of shutting down a pier because you had one problem, I tell you what it reminds me of as our noise ordinance. You know, we have no way of determining what's noise. Noise to some people is one thing, it's music to someone else. And if you, when we were talking about Mr. Jay Silcox, who is a great engine architect, and he could, if you were starting from scratch, he could design plans for a marina, there's no question about that, and it would be perfectly done. But we weren't saying in no way, shape, or form that they had to tear the whole marina down and start over with, and that's all a set of plans is gonna show you. What we wanted to know was where the places, that could duplicate the problem that started this, was something breaking.
Right.
And we have no way of doing that. Nobody that works for us has any way of going out there and saying, this won't hold 6 people at one time, so you gotta fix this in case.
Right.
I mean, that's what I was struggling with, and I said in this transcript, I don't know how you do this. And I also said, you know, most of the time, we're being told we gotta do it this way because this is what the state says. Well, the state said they didn't give a darn.
No,
And they fixed what broke and go on about business. So I haven't changed my opinion, and I think that's, I think.
It's interesting. They told me coming over here, the state contacted them recently and say, hey, have you done it all? Like, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Did they wonder, have you done anything? And you're saying no, waiting on the county?
yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, there's no straight answers in here. Like here's where we are again, same place in June. I don't know of any legal requirement that he needs permission to go do anything based on what he has from MDE.
I don't know
And why it wouldn't be
anybody-
good for everybody, that the sooner he gets out there and makes it a better asset for Kent County, and nobody in the government, I don't think in Kent County can stand in front of you and say, Commissioners, let me show you exactly where we've done this the right way, to be in a position a year later to still not be able to say to Mr. Westcott, here's why you're not open.
Listen, if I'm not
It's
mistaken,
appalling.
if I'm not mistaken, the health department put that sign up there. Is that right?
That's correct.
I didn't know the sign went up there. The health department put it up there, and then we found out that it was up there, and it by order of the county commissioners. Well,
But they got advice from the county attorney before they put it up.
we
That's
didn't.
what's hard
I don't
about
think
this is
that
where
we
the-
were aware of all of that until after it was put up, and then we've started hearing complaints and stuff about it. But I've always been an advocate that we have nobody on our payroll, or could go stand at his marina and say, that won't hold 6 people, and this won't.
Right.
That's
Right,
what
right.
we were struggling
Yeah.
with, that there's no
And-
way
and
of
you don't have-
determining,
and you don't have
other than
to.
tear it up. If you're gonna have Jay build a set of plans, it's gonna be for a brand-new marina. I mean, that's what his job is, and he's very good at it.
Right.
But that's not what we were looking at. We were looking at where is the possibility of another accident happen that we think who
Right.
knows? Who knows
But
how to determine that?
we-
That could have been a brand-new pier. And the hole for the bolt drilled in up top of the board or something by accident.
By poor
And-
workmanship,
And
of
6 or
course.
7,
Yeah.
the weight of 6 or 7 people plus a patient, all in one spot could have broke it. And
You all
so-
know from practical.
I'm not changing.
Yep.
I said that in the
Yep.
transcript, and that's what I
From
believe.
a,
I would like to make one point. There's been a couple comments about Mr. Jay Silcox and how did he become a part of this conversation? And the county, you're right, does not endorse particular vendors. But in the transcript, it does say, Commissioner Nickerson commented, have you worked with an engineer at all, Mr. Westcott? And Mr. Westcott said, yes, Jay Silcox.
Yeah, and as a
So-
matter of fact,
because he was,
they even
Mr. Scott, will you explain how Jay Silcox came into your life?
Well, wait a minute, Chip, because
He
we
was
actually,
told. Yeah.
Mr. Westcott called me one time and he said, I want to clean this place up and make some repairs and clean it up, but I've been told I can't use my travel lift. And he went and got Jay Silcox to say that the pier that the travel lift goes out on
Yes.
is okay.
Yes.
It's strong enough that you can go ahead and use it.
Yes, that's a
And
good
then
distinction, yes.
Because when you go clean, he did have some cleanup, a lot of cleanup to
Right.
do. It's much easier to clean it up if the boats that are winter stored on shore are not on shore no more in your way, so you want to get them overboard.
Yes.
So that you can go ahead and clean up around it. We had Jay Silcox go look at the pier the thing that picks the
Yes.
boats up goes out on, and Jay said he thought that was
And
good.
you're right, that's an important distinction, because there's kind of two parts to the Jake Silcox piece, and that clarified it for me, because when I said, who paid him for all this, because there's a report about adding all this support and this kind of bigger marina improvement report he generated. That was supposedly going to cost like $1,800 and all that, and that's where the question became, well, why do I need all that? But when he did want to use his travel lift, this was interesting. The planning office, I think, said, whoa, you can't just go out and use it, somebody's got to look at it. They contacted the health department. Now, just riddle me this, contacting the health department for permission to use a travel lift. Now, maybe it was contact the health department, he wants to use a travel lift because there's this public nuisance thing hanging over his head. But really, just kind of think every day how the county's running. Guy wants to use his travel lift, goes to the county planning office, and they say, we got to call the health department. Either way, he did what he was told. Mr. Silcox, he actually said he paid Mr. Silcox $150, I think, to go and look at whatever he had to get the permission to at least use the travel lift. That's settled. The unanswered Jay Silcox question was how else he got inserted into, he's the one that ought to do this plan that's going to be based on no code. This is in the transcript. There's no code, but it's got to be safe. And it even says in here, what we really want is an engineer that will sign a plan that we can then hold the engineer liable, right? It's all about who's going to get the old maid, because one day this is all going to happen again and nobody wants to be the one responsible. I'm pointing out, that's not how the government's supposed to look at helping somebody reopen their business. We're in this sort of thing about liability and all that and not just helping the situation.
As it happens, our Director of Planning, Housing and Zoning is here, so maybe Bill could shed some light on what the status is right now.
Well, before,
Go ahead.
well,
Finish.
okay. I'm kind of anxious. I want to make sure the commissioners have all their questions out, because I want to say again, your instincts were right in June on the questions you asked, and you got the answers were crazy. I'm trying to pick the words, it's just, but you've been, let me say this before your experience, Ronnie, you knowing marinas and sort of how things work. Buck, you being in sheriffs, I'm sure over your years as sheriff, there was an incident at a marina, a 911 call that people had to go and see. you're a builder, sort of just look at this from that standpoint, what you all know best. Forget about all these layers of all this legal mumbo jumbo and who's in charge. I've looked at it all, and it's kind of a mess.
My problem with the
It's
whole
like,
thing from day
you
one
gotta-
was that I didn't see an end to it. Nothing was pointed out that this has to be fixed and this has to be fixed.
Nothing.
We didn't know who's gonna determine how far we go with this thing? Because something may look bad, don't mean it's bad. It's.
And one more thing, and I know Mr. Mackey is going to come up. Let me just put this on the table for you all as the county commissioner sitting here today. Dan Saunders, who you all know as an attorney and I think is well respected, and has practiced a lot of law here in Kent County, and a lot of land use law. And Lance is really a sort of protege of Dan's, Lance Young. Dan has been struggling with Kent County for 20 years or more, trying to understand why when people want to do things on the water with a pier and all that, and they get all the approvals from the state, then the county thinks as soon as that pier hits the ground, they can basically do whatever they want. And it's really causing issues. A lot of the land use issues and controversies on the water are over what people are doing on the waterfront, and then when it comes to these piers and replacing piers and all that, Kent County is making it excruciatingly difficult to do things. And I don't see the legally, we don't see the legal justification for it. And Dan Saunders, back to my point, and he's been arguing this from a legal perspective for 20 years, that Kent County does not have the authority to do what it's doing, regulating all these piers like they were trying to. And then when you think about it.
Let's not go that, my problem with this issue is, obviously, the accident was the beginning. I don't see where an end is, and that's what I was struggling with when I said, and it's in this transcript, that if the man's got insurance and he fixes what broke, that, I don't know where else we go besides that. Because nobody has come sitting there saying, can look out there and say, this is bad, and this is bad, and this, you gotta fix this, this, and this, and then we'll let you reopen. None of that was ever said by the health department to put the sign up. Look, we're all trying to do the right thing, but
Yes.
because I know where the beginning is, the end and tying up a business, and there was no end in any of these reports that when you get here, you can go back and open up. That's the part that I was
Right.
struggling with. So, look, I wanted him to be able to fix the place that broke, clean up. Now, he had a few other little things that
Yeah.
had been pointed out, and he fixed a lot of them, but we need to bring this to a finality.
And maybe
And so let me hear from Bill.
I want to just make a couple of comments real quick. Chip, thank you for bringing some of this to our attention, because number one, this sign, in my opinion, needs to come down. We don't have the authority to put the sign up. That should be coming from the health department. And
But the health department has its authority from you.
they do, but I don't
Can I say
think,
this?
I don't think the commissioners should be on there. It should be the Kent County Health Officer.
Mr. Commissioner, you're absolutely correct, I believe, because if you look at section
And-
12210 of the county code for posting of public nuisances, it says verbatim what it should say, but it doesn't say that by order of the county commissioners. It says, "The sign shall say, these premises are unsafe and have been declared to be a public nuisance. Use or occupancy has been prohibited by Kent County," period. Somebody chose to add by order of county commissioners. You could say by order of the health officer.
Which is
I
what
do
I
know
think.
this, I do know this.
That's what I think it should say.
Y'all, make
Now, we
sure-
are, in all honesty, we're the Board of Health.
Correct, and you, yes.
But my problem is that sign went up, and I agree with John. When somebody puts a sign up with referencing the three of us, we ought to know about it and ought to be thoroughly
Engaged.
knowledgeable of what went on before something like that goes up, and we weren't. That sign went up, we knew nothing about it. I get a call that county commissioners closed down this marina. And then when we heard from Mr. Westcott that day,
Right.
I just couldn't see an end.
No.
You can, look, there was issues up there. I'm not gonna argue that. That needed tending to, but you gotta be able to find a end
Right.
where you say, okay, Mr. Westcott, if you'll do this, this, and this, then you can, that's it for
Right.
us.
And
We're
you know-
out of it. And that's why I still think we took on more than we should have, because he's a private business and he's got insurance to cover his issues.
Yes.
Now, if his insurance company, who is gonna have to be responsible for anything that happens up there, if they're not upset about it, I'm not sure why we should be.
Right, did anybody think his insurance company maybe went out and took a look and said, whoa, do we even insure this guy, this and that? I mean, that's all happens in the commercial world every day, so he's still there, you know? And you know, drawing on our own experience, sort of, when you really look back what happened, and I'm even thinking if I was an official involved with this incident, you can kind of see the immediate reaction and everybody that was involved, and I can kind of see the initial, whoa, this is a mess, whoa. But when you get a couple months out, and this goes to the sign, you know, it's 3 months out, okay, is it still like, whoa, terrible?
But we're like 8
We're
months out.
A
man.
year.
A year.
We're a year. And the sign, that's really where it gets to be a trouble.
Well, let's,
But that was one thing that was actually pretty, needs to be corrected. The other thing that I appreciate you bringing to our attention is the relevant case laws that you quoted here, Myers versus Anne Arundel County, where the county or municipality has no liability. And McQuillan municipal corporations. Both of these case laws, you know, I had trouble believing that Kent County, when we talked about this previously, that we would be liable when we don't even have the authority to issue a permit or require a permit. So
Right, yeah.
how can the county be liable? They can't be. And having these two case laws here stating that basically the county has no liability as a result of this, I think is very, very helpful.
listen,
mean, I know-
if you
listen,
don't mind, I'm gonna, one other thing, the boat that the patient was taken off of this one boat at Mr. Westcott's Marina, I know the girl, her name's Lisa, she had a houseboat there, and a friend of hers was on the boat and fell down the steps, and that's what they called 911 for, I think. Anyhow, that was the accident. That girl was leaving to go to Georgia, I think, and she needed her stuff off of her houseboat so that she could move away for good. And she called me and asked me about it, and I said, my name's the one, she says, you all are the ones that's closed the place down. I said, well, then if that's the case, I'll meet you up there on such and such a day, and I'll be there with you, and you go get your stuff and you can move away. And that's what she did, but that's just, and then that sign, I didn't like the sign to begin with either, but anyhow, look, thank you for your testimony. We're gonna hear from
Thank
Bill
you for your
Mackey, and then
time.
we're gonna make a decision.
Okay.
Mr. Mackey, you wanna?
Mike O'Neill from Code Enforcement is joining me because he's been to the site many times, involved with the story. Obviously, we're here to answer any questions you all might have. I'm happy to give a sort of little overview of our perspective on this project, or just answer questions, whatever you wish.
Bill, I'm speaking for me now. I'm not speaking for my colleagues right now. I'm speaking for me. But honestly, I don't think that I have any questions for you, because I don't think this is where we should have been. I said it from day one, and I think, as I stated the first time we talked about this, that once the repair was made, and there is some cleanup that needs to be done, and maybe you all can keep an eye on that. But myself, I'm prepared to take that sign down and turn it back over to Mr. Westcott to do business with. That's how I feel about it. And I'm not even sure that I think you should have been involved in it, to be quite honest with you.
I just have a quick question for Bill. What Mr. McLeod said is that the county has no authority to require a permit. Is that correct?
That's not my understanding. Our land use ordinance has a number of regulations regarding piers, their length, their placement. We do issue permits for all structures. That would be a structure. My understanding is we have been issuing and regulating piers for as long as we've had a land use ordinance, and people even go and get variances from the Board of Appeals when those piers are too long. So we have an interest in.
And as far as the length of the piers and stuff, we all agree with you that you are involved in that. And when our land use ordinance does say how long a pier can be, and but if it's too shallow, they'll go for exceptions, so they can get out to deeper water or something. That all makes sense. The fact that we're looking at this thing and we're saying that it needs to be fixed, but we're not saying what piece of it needs to be fixed. Where we know what the beginning is, but there was never an ending to it, and that's what I struggle with.
But the permit, you're talking about new construction, not repairs.
At some point, I believe we require a permit when there are repairs necessary. In this case, we do have information from an engineer that says there are many, many joists that are missing, spacing is inadequate. Piers apparently need a lot of reinforcing in the structural domain. I mean, that's part of the concern. And Mike, you wanted to say something?
There was a determination from Jay, and to clear up that a little bit, we keep a list of architects and engineers that we give out just as a handout, and that list was given to Mr. Westcott, and he was told he needed to have an engineer, but that's how Jay came into the loop. But Jay did provide us with information showing what piers were not structurally sound and what needed to be repaired.
And so
But when they were originally built, somebody approved them.
that I can't
With the-
address.
Huh?
I can't address that, so.
No, I'm not saying it's your
Right, yeah.
responsibility, but that pier that was built, when it was brand new, was built and approved by somebody. So if we say the joists are too far apart or whatever, it wasn't then because it was built and approved. There had to be somebody else way before you all approved that pier.
Sure. And after the last meeting we had, I think I spoke to Commissioner Dickerson a little bit, and we both reached out to Jay Silcox. And the idea behind it was he doesn't need to meet any new codes. We weren't asking him to go over the top. We just wanted it to be safe. And that was relayed to Jay Silcox, who was the engineer that Mr. Westcott hired. We didn't want, that was the end game, was bring us a determination and what work's going to be done. We'll permit it. After the permit's been issued, you do the work, then Jay would go out to see if it was built to his standards, which would ensure that it's safe.
So basically, he was grandfathered.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we were kind of giving him some leniency and saying, we just want it to be safe.
Trying to remedy the problem that.
Well, I think
was
that's all
elicited.
that any of us want.
Right.
Want it to be safe, but we also want to see a business operating. I personally, from what, I have not seen the property, but from everything I've heard from a couple of citizens and my colleagues here, I would like to see the place cleaned up a little bit, obviously. And certainly if there's no environmental issues as far as pollution, certainly we don't want that going on. I personally, I don't want to speak for Albert or Ronnie, but I've heard all I need to hear.
And I don't, and this is I'm not certainly not upset with anything that you all did, your department. Health Department, in my opinion, put that sign up there prematurely without talking to us, whose name's on the bottom of it, which And there was
It
a.
needs to come down.
It just, I think almost a year since the time this incident happened. I think it's time that we get out of this, and let the man move forward. And that's no reflection on your department at all.
Thank you. We pounded it in the ground though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we actually physically put the sign up after meeting with health, so we can physically remove the sign if you wish.
That's fine.
Yeah, okay. Just a technicality, so.
Do you have any other questions?
Well, yeah, so from the beginning, I guess I had heard about the sign being put up, and I rode up there one day, and I was just going to go visit the site. I saw the sign, but there was a gate or cable or something across the lane. I couldn't get any further, which was fine. You know, I agree. I mean, it was brought to my attention that me, had put a sign up, and I didn't know anything about it, so I was in the area, and I pulled in there. You know, I think at the beginning of all of this, I think all of us were pretty adamant about trying to get this business back up and running. Being new at this, you know, I wanted to make sure that the county, which is all of us in this room, or most of us in this room, were not held accountable to, you know, for the liability. And according to this document, we aren't, you know, or maybe it will get down to us at some point in time, or up to us, whatever the case may be. You know, if MDE has said that it's 85% compliant, and does the state inspect piers?
No, sir.
Okay.
For structural issues, they expect the local counties to do so.
And
Okay.
just to clarify something a little bit, MDE does basically a pre-construction meeting to determine.
What I meant was, when the work is done, does the state, not prior to, does the work?
But just, I wanted to clear up something a little bit. Just because MDE does a pre-construction and says, this doesn't meet our standards for a permit, you don't need a permit through MDE. They aren't saying that you don't need to get permitted through your local municipality. They're just saying our involvement doesn't need to be in there. They're not giving them a free pass to do the work.
What would be our involvement then?
A permit for repair. Pretty similar to a renovation on a house, but for the pier itself.
And that's because it's structural?
Yes.
So if I have a pier, and I don't, and I gotta replace two boards, two service boards, I gotta come to the county, get a permit to replace those two
The
boards?
deck itself,
Right. I think that's where things get separate. Once it gets into the structural problems and you're diving into the structure of the pier itself, that's when we require the permit. If you're not doing anything structurally, similar to a deck on a house, you can replace your deck boards on the house, but if you get into the structural work, changing the footers, then you do need a permit, and you also need plans showing the work that's going to be done.
Any other questions?
no, sir.
You got any more? Bill, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for coming in.
Before I go, I think I would be remiss in not offering, I said I wasn't going to, but just offering you one piece of advice if you don't mind.
Sure.
I consider this sort of an oppositional situation, and I think that you may want to seek advice of your own legal counsel. I don't think relying on the counsel of opponents is a good step. So I think there's always two sides to every opinion, and I would advise you that, maybe take a little time and make sure that, you have a legal review for someone who directly serves you. So,
Okay.
that'd be my advice. Thank you.
Appreciate the advice.
Thank you.
Motion,
It's your
motion.
If you're
You
in a
entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we direct our planning staff to remove the sign and let Mr. Westcott move forward with the repairs on his pier to create a safe structure for boaters of Kent County to use for this upcoming boating season.
Got a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Next up is Jeremy J. Rothwell,
Not here.
not here.
I don't see him or Jen Moore. So, I mean, I can kind of guide this discussion. This is an ongoing conversation. I thought they were going to be here today.
That Turner's Creek.
The
Right,
granary,
granary
right,
at Turner's
exactly.
Creek.
2 proposals have been submitted for a historical report. One is just over 5,000, and I believe the other is almost 9,000, to have somewhat of a survey done for documentation, assuming we move forward with the demolition of the structure. So for your consideration is to move forward with this initiative for the historical report and to fund it.
Do we have a timeline on how long it's going to take them to do this documentation?
I don't know, truthfully. They've been back and forth several times. Of course, staff would take it upon themselves to ensure that it gets done expeditiously. Otherwise, we need to revisit this because this is a hazard, quite frankly.
I understand that, the historical value of the thing, and I would not be against giving the 89, 18, and let them do a full report on it, as we've talked about before, so that we never forget what used to be there and the reason it was there, and some pictures and all, whatever they want to do to highlight that granary, I'm all for it. But I do want it down before weather breaks and people really start using that property, because I just think it's a hazard and it's nothing lasts forever, and this has lasted longer, according to them, than any other granary on the Chesapeake Bay, and now it's airtime. It's got to go.
Is there a timeline you would like to see imposed on this?
Yeah. And I'll put that in the motion when we make it, but I just have a question. You know, what is the big difference between the lesser amount and the higher amount when it comes to, it adds a historical report?
Right, exactly. This really was.
I mean, I don't know that a
Jeremy's-
historical report
Right.
is worth $3,000.
Well, I won't argue with that either.
Almost 5, or 4.
So photography, there we go. As I was trying to flip
Yeah,
back and
too
forth.
many
Okay.
pages.
So it looks like one of them has, and by the way, Jeremy did try to get more bids, but he could not find any other vendors that would offer this service, and I did not mention that before. It appears as though the biggest difference is the first one has measured drawings, photography, and historical documentation will be housed at University of Delaware, but there's no report. So the other one is for a short written historical report to be paired to Historic American Builders Survey Standards. So I suppose the second one puts it into more of a report form. That will be the deliverable. This does say field work will be completed in February 2024. I would like to add, so for your consideration.
You make the motion.
Yeah, I'm with you, Chair. I mean, that's almost $4,000. I don't know whether or not, I mean, I just don't know what
I think
What
I think the drawing is showing what it was there.
The photography, and it's going to be going to the archive, which is what we talked about when we had our last meeting with Jeremy and Jennifer. So I'd like to make a motion that we contribute $5,078 for drawings, photography, and keeping the full record in the institutional archive. And this has to be completed by March 1st. And demolition is to follow.
Second. Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Very good.
And this, I guess I should also add that this should come from contingency.
And then notify Mike Molds or whoever's going to handle it that demolition can start March 1st. All right, thank you. Miss Jennifer White,
Good morning.
HR Business Partner. John Johnson, HR Specialist, Department of Human Resources.
Vinay.
Excuse me?
Vinay Johnson.
Vinay, I apologize.
That's okay, it's a hard
Look,
name.
You're not the first person I've messed her name up. I apologize,
It's a
He
hard name.
messes
You're
my
fine.
name up all the time.
but that's on purpose.
We are here this morning to present to you a candidate for the recently reinstated correctional officer position. Vinay was able to source 7 candidates, and out of the 7, the candidate before you is the recommended candidate for hire. And we would like your permission to move forward with a conditional offer.
And this makes them fully staffed.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommended candidate for a conditional employment offer.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
Okay, thank you. And then the next candidate is for one of our MEO vacancies. This is to hire an MEO 2. There was 3 applicants that were interviewed, and the one before you has quite a bit of experience, also holds a CDL, and is deemed the recommended or the best candidate for the position. And we are seeking your approval to make a conditional offer of employment.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommended candidate to fill one of the MEO vacancies in the County Roads Division for a conditional employment offer.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before you go,
Oh, boy. Okay.
anything new with,
I knew that was coming. I already prepared for this.
anything,
So-
I knew you would be prepared.
Yep.
With Menagon?
Yes, I reached out to them earlier this week, asked where they were in the process. Told them it was taking a little bit longer than what they initially told us. I said not only are retirees getting a little, antsy about it, we are as well, because this is not what we told everyone was going to happen. They wrote me back actually yesterday evening and said that they are now writing the document, and we are going to be meeting this Friday with them to finalize everything. I'm anticipating part of the reason why it took so long, as I told some of the retirees, is they had to reach out to their software vendor to create an entirely new template for their software because our reimbursement situation is so unique. So one of my questions to them on Friday will be, is that what has taken so long? But that's where we are right now.
And is there anything resolved with the regular health insurance?
Regular health
What,
insurance.
I don't understand what you're saying.
The retiree health insurance benefit, I guess it's Humana. Care First,
Humana's prescription.
prescription, and I guess Care First.
Do you mean reimbursements from the
Yes.
reconciliation?
Well, I know some of the reimbursements have gone out, but is there something in place? Do our retirees know, are they going to be paying the county, who's going to submit the money, or are they paying direct?
So the Medicare and the Humana are also going to go through the HRA. I have spoken to a couple of different retirees, not all of them, but most of them, and because I know their premiums are due a month in advance. I've explained to them to keep copies of all of their invoices and all of their receipts, and the county is going to honor all of those payments that they have made beginning January 1 of 2024, and I will personally help them get them submitted through the HRA for reimbursement.
So once this HRA is in place,
Correct.
through Menagon,
Yes.
all that's going to be done.
They're going to be getting it back, yes.
Right, it's effective January 1st, so there will be no, all of those payments will be included.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And we've sent out invoices for dental and vision, and then our under 65 retirees for their health, dental, and vision as well. And we've gotten some payments for those. But we're trucking along, we're just waiting on Benetcon to get things moving.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill, you're back up, I believe.
Sir, thank you. The item before you gentlemen today is the long-awaited land use ordinance. On August 1st, this body forwarded a draft of the land use ordinance for review and recommendations to your Planning Commission and your Agricultural Advisory Commission. They met during the months of September, October, November, and December and had discussions. The Agricultural Advisory Commission sent their recommendations to the Planning Commission, and then the Planning Commission included those in the document that's presented to you today. And on January 4th, the Planning Commission recommended this document as their recommendation to you. There's a resolution in the packet which would accept this document and then provide instructions to staff on next steps. After this, the document becomes yours. I believe next week we're anticipating introduction of a bill for the land use ordinance, but that would be your bill and your ordinance. It would be separate from this. This is a recommendation, and then you would bring forward what you would like to see. I wanted to give you a few highlights of what are some of the differences between the version that you're receiving and the version that you sent in the summer. The Planning Commission final version includes new provisions to allow within the Route 1 corridor financial institutions and retail businesses to have drive-throughs as special exceptions, and that will be in addition to restaurants that would have drive-throughs as a permitted right. Those both appear in this version. It would allow short-term vacation rentals by right in all residential districts, but not commercial districts. It would update animal husbandry uses per all the recommendations received from the AAC. And basically, there were just things that are in our code that are from many years ago and different terminology, different processes. So that's all been updated working with the Agricultural Advisory Commission. There was a new certification process for nonconformities based on the Talbot model inserted. That's for things like a nonconforming use, whether that is recognized by the county or not. Before, there was a very light process. This kind of gives some steps, charges the Board of Appeals with that process instead of the planning director. Thank goodness. And then it adds some expanded and detailed processes for the text and map amendments. Those were sort of mixed together in the previous code. Planning Commission asked for a revised triangle visibility to incorporate posted speed limits on roads. So the idea that you have to lower walls and other obstacles next to a corner have been expanded based on the speed of the roadway that's approaching that corner. The Planning Commission addressed using health, safety, and general welfare standards instead of a public good standard for review. That's basic police powers. They asked for some additional definition for trees when they're measured at planting. I think previously the practice was the root ball all the way to the top of the tree was the measurement for the height of the tree, and they'd like to see the planted tree at the base of the tree to the top of the tree be the height used. And then there were article by article changes recommended by the Planning Commission's own attorney, and those were incorporated in the document. In the future, we hope to provide a non-codified appendix that would have a matrix of all the uses and then a chart with all the zoning districts showing where those are permitted. That won't be adopted as part of the code because that would be sort of creating two sets of legal documents to regulate that. But that's sort of the big picture. You have the document before you, and happy to answer any questions if I can.
All 379 pages.
I might have to look for a while, but yes.
Any questions?
We have a little workshop scheduled with you next week, I think it is, to talk about the changes. And personally, myself, I'm not sure that I need to see all the, I want to see obviously, you've sat with this for a long time, dealing with this, the controversial changes that might jump out at a public hearing or something.
Okay.
Of course, I know of a couple, but it'd be good if you could just brief us on, when we have that discussion, what issues you think could become controversial during a public hearing.
Perfect, thank you.
Obviously, we want to be able to see all the changes, but really, you want to highlight the ones that you think you've heard that could become controversial in any way.
Well, I mean, based on the 3 years of meetings, there are certain issues that definitely people always show up for. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
I can certainly generate a list, yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, that'd be great.
Thank you.
And you and I still on for tomorrow at 10:30? Thank you.
Yes, sir, sounds good, yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-02 to accept the land use ordinance proposed from the Kent County Planning Commission and the Agricultural Advisory Commission, and to instruct staff to draft a bill for introduction on February 6, 2024.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thanks, Bill. Glad of that, aren't you? I am. Now, listen, just a little clarification. When we get this done, then we go into the mapping.
Right.
Now, is that gonna take, what do you, as a timeline, what do you think the mapping part is, how extensive is that?
Slightly hesitant, only because the first part took so much longer than I thought, but there's really, I think somewhere maybe in the neighborhood of 24 or less, properties to be looked at. We're going to have a discussion with Planning Commission this Thursday. We sort of, we close the window for applications. We're going to ask the Planning Commission, what process do you want to use to review these by, right? Do you want to do them all at once? Do you want to spread them out? So I'll have some notion of sort of how long it might take based on sort of what the Planning Commission wants to do.
One we just dealt with the other day with the 20 acres, like for where the old Humane Society and that
Right.
zoned ag, and now they want to use, I guess that is a change that we would see in the mapping, is that?
They're actually not going to rezone the property. They're going to try to get a use on the property by a special exception.
Just based on anything under 20 acres or
Correct.
something?
Yes, sir.
That will
Yeah.
determine what that is,
Yeah.
okay.
I would hope that we might have something before you at the beginning of the summer, maybe?
Okay.
We'll see. I'll know better based on sort of how Planning Commission feels they want to go through it. Again, there's going to be a few suggestions from the staff team about things that maybe have been long-term problems that no one asked about. But in general, there's about less than 20 applications where a person said, I'd like to change my property from, RC to RR or something like that. So those, it will be individual properties being looked at. So it's not going to have the same giant comprehensive sort of approach. It's really very particular.
Now, we will have a public hearing on this piece of it,
Yes, sir.
and then we will vote to adopt that separately, or do we wait till the mapping's done and do it all at one time?
My goal was to go ahead and have you all adopt the zoning code as soon as you can, because it has to go off to Critical Area Commission and get reviewed by them and then come back. So there's going to be quite a break in time.
I got
And
you.
then, we'll hopefully be through the maps, and then they'll sort of hopefully catch up at each other at the end, and maybe we can do it all at once,
Very good, okay. Thank
depending
you.
on timing. That's the goal, yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Ms. Bonnie Pearsall, Kent Alcohol and Tobacco Enforcement.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have a couple things on the agenda. The first one is a modification on license application. Washington College has submitted a license modification application requesting to remove one member and adding a new member to their liquor license. The application has been reviewed and has met all the requirements for approval of a license modification. We are requesting approval of the license modification application from Washington College.
I'll make a motion to approve the license modification application for Washington College.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it.
Thank you. The second thing I have is the holds on renewals. The Comptroller of Maryland has put a hold on them. A letter was received from the Comptroller of Maryland requesting a hold to be placed on the 2024 renewal of 2 licensed establishments in Kent County. The Comptroller has asked to place the hold on these establishments due to the lack of compliance with taxes administered by their office. A letter was signed by me and placed in the mail to the 2 establishments, informing them of the request. The letters are attached for your review. That's just the report out for you.
Very good.
And that's all I have for
So
today.
when do these licenses,
They have to work with the Comptroller to get their taxes
Yeah,
straight before we can do anything with them.
I understand that, but I mean, are they still valid currently?
Until April, yes.
Or April?
Yes,
So it's important that these folks get it resolved between now and April,
that's correct. That's why,
if they want to continue to do business.
correct. That's why we try to get the letters out early so they can work on that to get in compliance with the Comptroller of Maryland.
In your contact with these folks, have they indicated that they're going to resolve this timely, or?
I'm sure they will. I'm sure they'll get on it right away, once they're aware of the issues. I'm sure they're already aware of the issues. We just got the letter for the hold.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh. Thank you.
Shelley, I think you're next.
Okay, I only have one substantive item for you today, and that is that the Director of Government Affairs from the Comptroller's Office has made a request for Kent County to proclaim February 1st, 2024 as Unclaimed Property Tax Day. And what they're saying is that it is an important tool in the tool belt to raise awareness at the local level. Nationally, 1 in 7 people has unclaimed property, and more than $5 billion is returned by states annually. So by getting the awareness out there to the residents that there may be some unclaimed property, hopefully we'll have some people get this off of the state books.
There's a website that they can
Correct.
search for that. Yeah.
Yep, that is correct. Finding unclaimed property is easier than ever with a simple and free search available on the state's unclaimed property website, and that is https://www.marylandtaxes.gov/unclaimed-property. So, and we'd be happy to give that out if anybody wants to give us a phone call. And that's it. The only other item that I have for you is the work session announcement for next week. Tuesday, February 6th, we will begin at 3 p.m. to discuss 2 items. First is the Village of Kennedyville, and second is more information on the Kent County Land Use Ordinance that you were just discussing with Mr. Mackey.
Now, are we still,
Oh, yes.
we had
A hearing.
talked about me going to a hearing in Annapolis, or at least one of us, and I mean,
Yes.
I don't mind doing it, I don't like it, but I would do it. And then you all, if I get back in time, whenever, I mean, you all go ahead with the, and it's a bit better that, I think, Albert, as a part of that Village of Kennedyville, being a builder, and bring some knowledge there, and
Sure.
the land use ordinance, but I'll be, I guess I have to leave here, I'll have to have a car, you're not going with, you're gonna stay
I'll
here
stay
with
here.
this. So, I gotta be over by 12 o'clock again,
I think it's 1 o'clock is the hearing
is it?
for Tuesday. I can tell you in just a second, I have it up. I think the last one was at,
Mrs. Knight, why don't you come on up while I see, this, would get public comment, and you're Miss Linda Knight, I assume.
I am.
And we just had a conversation about this. Anyhow, I understand why you're here, but you go ahead, and I agree with your being upset about this, but let me hear from you.
So my name is Linda Knight. I was here 3 months ago to raise the issue that for the better part of 2023, Kent County did not have a functioning property tax assessment appeals board. It's now 3 months later, and so for almost 12 months, this board has not been functioning, and therefore residents of Kent County have had no ability to contest their property tax assessment. It is the commission's responsibility to put names forward to the state. I understand that that has happened. I also understand as of yesterday that there hadn't been a follow-up with the state. Hopefully that happened yesterday. The residents of Kent County deserve a functioning government, and part of that government is this appeals board. And so
And I could not agree with you more.
1 year later, residents, and I can't be the only one, are in a state of limbo because we do not have the appeals board in place. And so I will continue to raise this as an issue. I am concerned that we're in the same state on the 30th of January that we were in at the end of October.
And you're exactly right. And the first part of it, I guess we're somewhat obviously responsible. I personally, unless, I was not aware that we didn't have a functioning board, but when you brought it to our attention, we went out and gathered up some names or had some people apply, and it's in the governor's office. I will tell you this, we'll have the office today or tomorrow contact the governor's appointments and see what maybe the holdup is. But it's right after you talked about it, we went out and got some people lined up to be a part of that board, sent the names to Annapolis, and we're waiting for them to make an appointment.
I think there were 3 altogether, but ultimately they have to go
There
on
was
the
2
website.
vacancies, I think, and we, wasn't it?
What about the alternate?
We needed an alternate,
Right.
that's,
And we gave the applicants the website, and then it's up to them to fill out the application that goes to the appointment secretary, that to then go to the governor.
and let me, while we're talking about that, this is a little bit, but it's along the same lines. We lost a judge of orphans court, and we had to stay, I think the central committees sent some names in, and I don't think we've got a,
To my knowledge, that also has not been an appointment.
so whether it's because the new administration's, is something new to, but we're waiting on more appointments than just
Right,
this.
and we've been in
taxes that-
contact with them. I mean,
Yes.
that they know that we have vacancies, and we've been in constant, not constant, but we've been in regular contact with them. And they have requested information, and we've given it to them, so we're waiting to hear from them that the appointments have been made.
Well, we will have the office reach out and let them know that we're still waiting, and we got people that are anxiously waiting for these appointments, so.
Well, I would just urge the commissioners to be proactive. It is, in my opinion, unreasonable for something to be put forward and then just waiting. When I talked to the state group responsible for this issue 3 months ago, they told me that they had been in regular contact with Kent County, urging the county to put forward nominations. That was in October. And again, here we are at the end of January. I would just urge you to put some urgency behind this issue, because we residents deserve to have a functioning appeals board.
No question about it, and I assure you that this office will reach out today and see what the holdup is.
Interestingly, there was legislation put forward that would allow a board to sit regionally. It is currently in Annapolis, so we'll see, that could help us as well. I mean, for a while, we had no option because nobody was volunteering, and we can't just appoint without them actually wanting to be a part of the board. But then we did get enough volunteers, and those names have been put forward. But regionally, apparently we're not the only ones struggling with this. because somebody submitted legislation, some delegate or senator submitted legislation that would allow for some sort of regional approach when these situations come up. Don't know if that'll pass or not.
Well, we want to apologize for the inconvenience, and you are exactly right that you should have that board to go to and carry your concerns to, and we'll make an extra effort to stay on top of it best we can.
May I just make one other comment?
Absolutely.
To the idea of a regional board, I would just ask the commissioners to consider putting forth a comment that may make sense. I mean, we are a relatively small county, and if there were an ability to have a regional group that would cover 2 or 3 or whatever it is counties, it just seems, in my opinion, to be a sensible thing to do. So I don't know whether the commission supports or endorses or writes letters when things like this are proposed, but I would suggest that might be a good step. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And President Fithian, the hearing is at 1 p.m. on February 6th.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I just confirmed that. We will ensure that there's a car and
Yeah, sure.
blah, blah, blah.
That's
Yeah.
fine. So I need a motion to go into, we got an executive session.
I'll make a motion to go into closed session under the Annotated Code of Maryland, General Provisions, Article 3-305B, 1, to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction, or any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?